Okay, Bismillah. So once again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning to all of you. Inshallah, this will be the first session for um, this course for the semester, um, which is the course of MECH 1301, Engineering Mechanics Statics, for section 1 and 2. Right, I believe that is the section for this morning, section 1 and section 2. And for those who are new to the IUM Gombak campus, welcome to the Gombak campus, even though perhaps most of us are not actually physically in Gombak campus yet. Regardless, for the returning students, welcome back to IUM Gombak campus, inshallah. So this morning we will have the first class, which will mainly be the briefing and introduction to this course. But before that, I think some are still making their way to the class. So I will begin with some introduction about myself. So my name is Muhammad Saifuddin bin Muhammad Rehan. I will be the lecturer for section 1 and section 2. And I'm a lecturer in the Kuliah of Engineering, Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. So some background, I was born in the UK, in Leeds. I'm not sure if anyone follow the English Premier League, so recently got back to the Premier League. My wife was born in the Oklahoma in the US. Coincidentally, both of us born overseas because our parents did their degree there. And throughout my life, I grew up mainly in Shah Alam, in Selangor. This is where I spent my primary school. I'm not sure if you can detect which one is myself. And then this is where I spent for my secondary school. And then after that, my intention was to go back to my birthplace in the UK. So I got into Intech doing A level, but in '98, Alhamdulillah, there's a economic crisis, and two things happened. One is the scholarship that I received was changed into loan from a scholarship. Now we have to pay back because the government do not have money that time for our batch, and from going to overseas, we are sent to local university. So I went to University Tenaga Nasional for my degree, and at that time it's only recently established and open. So there's only two courses back then, only electrical and mechanical. So I have to choose between the two, even though it was not initially my choice. So I selected mechanical. Hence, I'm here in the mechanical department. Finished my degree, worked for a little bit in UPM as a tutor, but for several reasons, I ran to IUM. One of the reasons is because UPM at the time want me to go straight to do my PhD. At that time, I got scared, so I ran to IIM, where they say, no problem, you can do your master first before you do your PhD. So then I did my master degree in UTM Skudai before going for my PhD in France. These are the university in which I spent 4 years there. Now, several things just at the beginning of this session today, just as I touched upon. Um, for my PhD, I actually extended my study for 3 semesters. For my master, I extended for 1 semester, I think. So I have always, not to say always, but I struggled a bit during my master as well as my PhD. And Alhamdulillah, still eventually finished both degrees. And at the end of 2013, got back to Malaysia and serving in IIM until now, right? So I'm just mentioning that so that anyone that I don't know, for degree, I think sometimes some students need to repeat some subjects or even hopefully not, but extending studies, etc. Sometimes it is just part of our life. As long as we can eventually finish, inshallah, eventually it will be okay. That was my life, and yeah. Anyway, this is just some pictures that we took as memory from France. So we got two daughters born in France, including this one. Anyway, so from 2013 until now, I think it's around 8 years. I have been teaching in the Kuliah of Engineering. Alhamdulillah. So today we will have an overview and a briefing for this course, in particular about this subject, as well as about the way we will conduct this section, inshallah. So we'll begin with taking a look at the course outline. So what is it here? All right. So the course code is MECH1301, 3 credit value. All right. So the learning outcome. So if you look at this one, I hope I will remember to put this course outline in the Google Classroom, inshallah. Now, there are three basically learning outcomes stated here. The first one is identify forces and moments and draw free body diagram to solve problems in statics for both internal and external loads. Several keywords there. One is that to identify forces and moments. So mainly we will deal with that. You have to determine or calculate or compute force, moments, as well as draw free body diagram. So when it states that these are the learning outcome, so the assessment, the test and exam will focus on this to see whether you achieve the learning outcome or not, right? So meaning that when it says one of the learning outcome is for you to be able to draw the free body diagram, you will see later on that the drawing itself have a significant mark there. So meaning that if you do not draw and just simply calculate, you will lose mark, or the drawing is incomplete or incorrect, you will always also lose marks, right? Even if your calculation and final answer is correct, but each component have their own marks, right? Because that is part of the learning outcome. So that's number one. Make sure you understand that. And then analyze simple structures, frames and machines. So we'll be focusing on that as well as to compute the centroid, center of mass, and also moment of inertia of a body. So this is learning outcome 1, 2, and 3. Right. Of course, under each of these, there are several chapters which we'll see after this. Of course, in more detail, you will get more understanding of this, or meaning as time goes, by, we will go for corresponding chapters, which is listed below. Now, in terms of the assessment, we have here we have the quiz, we have the midterm, and we have the final, and we'll touch upon the percentage after this. But if you look here in this table, for learning outcome number 1, it listed you will be assessed for it in quiz, midterm, and final. But for learning outcome number 2 and 3, it will only be assessed in quiz and final exam. Why is that? Because for this first learning outcome, we will cover it from the beginning up till the midterm, right? So, and for learning outcome number 2 and 3, most probably we will only reach those chapter after the midterm, right? So those will be tested in the final exam and not in the midterm. There are several implications of that, because some of this, number 2, especially number 3, is different, may be different than the linear outcome number 1. Especially number 3, it's basically different, but number 2 is a continuation. It's you have to understand number 1 to be able to do number 2, basically, right? But if you understand number 1, does not necessarily mean you can solve for number 2. It's an extension, and it tends to be more complex. So with that, because there are cases where students get quite a good mark in the midterm but really struggle in the final exam. So make sure that you can understand throughout, from the beginning until the end, and make sure you do everything to make that happen, inshallah. Now, in terms of the student learning outcome, you can see here, normally for the subject with this credit hour, normally the time in the end will add up to 120. That includes the time that you will spend in the assessment as well as in study inside the class and outside of the class, class time meaning. So bottom here is basically just the assessment time, so meaning that you have 2 hours of midterm and 3 hours of final exam. But to prepare for the exam, then it is expected that you at least spend this much time, right? For final exam, at least 10 hours of preparation, midterm 5 hours, for quizzes, cumulatively 5 hours. Now, here you have 28 hours of lecture plus 14 hours of, here it says classwork or perhaps tutorial. Right? Now, if you see your schedule, you will notice that basically your schedule consists of like 2 plus 1 hour, right? Per week, 2 plus 1 per week. And that will add up to this 42, right? 20, meaning that if you add up this one, 42 for the 14-week semester, right? For the 14-week semester, where each week you have 3 hours in class, then it will add up to 42. But if you look here in the course outline itself, it is expected that outside of this 3 hours, you spend 53 hours of problem solving, self-study, etc., to be able to pass this course. Right? So it's actually more than the 3 hours, meaning that if you actually spending time on this subject less than the 3 hours per week, meaning that you have 3 hours in class, and 53, meaning that, I don't know, is it between 3 to 4 perhaps, right, per week, right? So if the time you spend outside of this 3-hour class is less than 3 hours, do not be surprised if you struggle with this kind of courses, because the load and the, the time required for you to spend to really understand each component, that is the idea, right? So it is expected. Do not be surprised if you are expected to work to do revision, to do problem solving, etc. outside of class, because normally if you look any course outline, normally it will already indicate the amount of hours normally required for any student to really understand the subject, right? So I'll just highlight this first so that you understand this. Right. And then the rest is just the topics, the meaning which week and which chapter that we will cover. We will cover I will show the schedule for this section, how we will implement after this. And then this will be the textbook. Right. So that is the course outline. And the textbook is basically this one, this on the left here. If this is the physical textbook, the cover, right? Now, is it compulsory to have the textbook? Now, the way I implement the course is basically I use the slide provided by this textbook, meaning that the slide corresponding to this textbook. So in terms of going through the course, just going through because if you have seen in your Google Classroom, the slides is already there, right? For all the chapters, you can see already there. If you have seen the recorded videos that is already available, there's a lecture there as well as tutorial. So in terms of going through, even if you do not have your textbook, then the resources is enough just to go through the course in term of that, right? However, if possible, normally it is suggested for you to have the textbook for two things. One, textbook normally are written in a way that you should be able to follow and understand even without a teacher, right? Because normally that's how it is written. So that's number one. So it will go step by step to help the understanding. Number two is about the problems, meaning that if you want to solve problems, the one that we show and solve in the class as an example or even in the tutorial is just because of the time, we just only managed to cover a certain number of questions, right? So in the textbook, there will be lot more questions that you can explore, because in the midterm or in the final, obviously the question can come from various different possibilities of questions. So if you only have seen the type of question in the lecture or in the tutorial, and you have never seen other possibilities, maybe it become a bit difficult in the midterm or the final, right? So that's where it can help. All right. Now going to the assessment. So we have quizzes, midterm, and final, and with the marks as shown there. So the final exam will give you 50%, the midterm will give you 30%, and the quizzes will give you 20%. Now, important note here is that currently the kuliah is implementing this rule basically, right? For any student to pass any particular subject, you have to pass the final exam, meaning that even though the passing mark is 50%, but meaning that even if you get a total mark more than 50%, for example, let's say you get quiz full mark, midterm full mark, then you already secure 50%, right? And the final you just add another 10, for example, you get 60%. But if you fail final exam, you will still be failing the course, and you have to repeat, right? So that's the policy. And unfortunately, some students actually in the past have that is the case where because of failing the final exam, they actually fail the course. So, and I've shown the course outline before, that the final exam will mainly test on several chapters and it is different than the midterm. So make sure you really can pass for those chapters, right? Right. So hopefully, you understand this. Now, in terms of the way this class will be implemented, it will be using the flipped classroom approach. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this or familiar with this. How many of you have never heard of what this is?
For me, I am quite familiar.
All right. What about the rest or anyone else? Never heard. All right.
No, never heard of it, sir.
Never heard.
Okay. Uh, I will just go through what is it and what is the implication, right? So first is, if you look at this screen here, on the left is basically the traditional way, and the right is basically how it is flipped. So normally, traditionally, well, when we go to class, we have the lecture, right, where the teacher is teaching something, and then after that, we do the homework, for example. Normally in terms of before this in school, that's normally the term, right? We do homework to fully understand the subject. Now, when we say flipped classroom, it's actually just flipped, meaning that before you come to the class, you cover the lecture. When you come to class, then you do activities, right? When you're solving problem, etc. That beforehand, in the normal traditional setup, it is in the homework where you try and you experience overcoming the challenge, etc. Right? So that's basically why it is called flipped classroom, because you flip. Um, right. So the function of the lecture also will be a bit different, right? For traditional classroom, um, basically, yeah, here meaning the lecture is the center, um, because he will give you in the class, he will be the center, and afterwards you have the homework, right? But in flip classroom, you cover the lecture before coming to class, and in class you have activities, solving problems, um, you know, and if you need help, of course the teacher will be there. Here it says is guide on the side, right? So whenever you need, he will be there to help and assist. Right, so that's basically classroom approach, right, where it flipped, and the implication one is what you have to do beforehand and what we will be doing in the class time, right? Um, so yeah, this is just the iteration. So before class, you have to cover the lecture, and then in class, we have activities rather than before. In class, you just listen to the lecture, and afterwards is where you do those activities, right? Um, so we will discuss a bit on what to do here, meaning that in the class activities, right? But one thing for sure is before class you have to cover the material. And previously, when I started using this approach, it was before COVID, meaning that we actually in class is actually physically in class. So when we solve problems, etc., so the setting is physical setting, and I'm just going around, and anyone that require help or require explanation, whatever, I'm there, or I need to show in the whiteboard how to resolve certain things. But then when COVID started, so we resort to basically those tutorial video, meaning I've already prepared all the tutorial videos for different questions, so different student that require you to refer for different question that they are confused, those video are available for them. But recently, there are comments as well as some student performance issues where it seems that that approach might not be enough for some students. They may require actually some or more interaction. So What another option that we can do is like having a smaller group discussions using during the class session to solve problem, to discuss, and also I'm still there available to explain, to help, etc. Right. So in this approach, one main implication is that before coming to class, you really have to cover the lecture material, meaning that the theory, the concept you already have covered beforehand in the covering the lecture video, and then coming to class and we will solve problems, etc., discuss to make sure that you really understand. So that's the main implication basically, right? Because if you do not cover the lecture beforehand, you come and we will discuss, you will be lost because you do not know what the theory are, etc. Right? So that's one major implication. So from my experience, when we start doing this before COVID, especially, most students improve with this because obviously um, prior to that, meaning that you just listen to the lecture in the class, and then afterward, when you try on your own to solve problem, etc., basically you are on your own, right? Roughly speaking like that, and you may refer to the friends, etc. And if no one understand, then that's it. But when we flipped it, during how to say solving the problems, etc. So if you have any problem, etc., then we can resolve it there and then, and I'm there to help. Of course, for those who are not prepared coming to class, they will suffer. So that's basically the implication. But in pandemic situation, I think some students because before that, when the because covering the lecture become totally online before class, but we still have direct interaction in class, right? But during pandemic, then everything become online, even like now become online. So some student actually struggle. So that's why we will have to discuss a bit on this. Any feedback? Okay, first, any feedback about yeah, especially for those who have never heard of a flipped classroom before. Any concern? Anything? Do you understand what what the approach is and what you have to do?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So everyone understand? So far so good. All right. Now, of course, if you have any question, anything, just write or post out. Um, Now, the first thing is this. I would like your basically your feedback in terms of what would you prefer to be the main mode of the in-class activities, meaning that during the class, what will happen, right? So um, now, basically you have two options here. Now, hopefully most of you are using like laptop or computer, etc., because I think it's easier to go to simultaneously to answer the survey. This is for you to answer right now, right? So you can go to menti.com and key in those code up there, 44065485. I just want to understand from your perspective, your own personal preference. Would you rather, meaning that during the class time, it is mainly for you to be in group discussion and meaning solving the problems within the group, or because when we see was tutorial, because the tutorial videos and recording is already there, you just mainly on your own going through the tutorial. So just want to know how many students prefer which option. Of course, it's up to you. I just want to understand the demographic of this section. So how many students are there? This is 30. I think 30 is not. Someone is not not here. it should be, how many students is this section? 35, should be 35. So meaning some students are not here. Okay, 24, so another 5 students roughly, I think. So please do respond so that I can understand basically how many students prefer which way. Some of you not yet. So 24, no other. I think there should be more, right? 25, okay. Right, so thank you very much for those who responded. So it's basically roughly half and half. Huh? Okay, interesting. Afterwards, I will do, after the class, I will do like a Google Form survey to know, because if the demography like this, I think, because we can have a parallel different mode, whichever is the best for each student. We would like to help as much as possible to suit your preference. So we'll discuss further anyway. Now, because there are quite significant preference for those. Now, just to highlight on the resources available, if you look at your Google Classroom, I hope everyone have already entered the Google Classroom, right? Because I think the number, perhaps most of you have. So if you look at the coursework there, these are already there. So the slides is already there. The slides here is basically when you cover the lecture, it is based on those slides. These are tutorial questions where in the tutorial recordings, those are the questions. So you can see the question first and see which recording that you may need to see if you do not know how to solve any particular questions. Okay, this one is just if, because normally I put this up front. Every semester, this is what I do, so that the student actually have to have the access to see what are the previous comments about the lecturer, so that if they want to change a section, etc., if possible, they can try to do that within the first week. And this one, if you look here, it's the lecture and tutorial videos, which if you go in there and there's a link to the playlist, and here you can see all the lecture and tutorial recordings. Now, it starts from chapter 2 onwards, and like this is the lecture, and this is the lecture, and then this is the tutorial. Right, so it's arranged accordingly. So you have the lecture and tutorial for each component basically. But before that, there's 2 video up here. Yeah, you can see this is basically like a refresh course of trigonometry and integration. Now, I made this because I found out early on that some students, when they come to cover this course, they are quite, I don't know whether they have forgotten or they are quite weak or they don't even fully understand how to use trigonometry. Because in this course, because this thing in trigonometry or integration is mathematics, right? And in this course, we are learning about mechanics, statics, and we definitely have to use some mathematical application. But the thing is, it is assumed that you already master those things before. So if you are weak on this, or if you have even forgotten how to use this, then you will struggle really bad. Right? So that's why I think this week, before next week, right, make sure you refresh really on trigonometry, especially Integration, you still have time because the chapter that involve integration is after the midterm, right? But trigonometry, we will be using it a lot throughout, and if you struggle um, to understand, the sine, cosine, especially in 3D, right? Because in 2D, still some student I noticed that they struggle, or some student in the past they do not even understand how to get the x and y component. But in 3D especially, you have to be able to really imagine and know how to deal with this. So make sure you cover this if you need them. If you are okay, then alhamdulillah, you do not need to cover this one, right? But this is there to help you, and or you can just cover to see what you need to actually able to do before going to all of these chapters, right? So it is there to help you if you need them. Now, normally, okay, for the classroom recording, so normally I record all the classes. So even if you have, I don't know, MC or valid reason not to be able to come to class, the recording is there available, and there's no excuse not knowing what's going on in the class, right? So that's basically my approach. And I will update in the Google Classroom where the recording is going to be placed, right? Now, we have to discuss a bit on our schedule. Um, First, I think we'll go to the schedule throughout the 14 week, and we are Tuesday and Thursday, right? Okay, so I will. Okay. All right. I will put this in Google Classroom, inshallah. Have I? I think I haven't, right? So I will put this on in Google Classroom so you can see exactly what we will be covering each class. Right. So for example, today we will have to cover chapter 1 actually after this, and this is just the Google Meet that we are using right now, right? And then for next class, we'll cover these two videos as well. Now, having understand what I said about the flipped classroom, this in this schedule, these are the video that you have to cover before the class, right? Hopefully that is clear, right? I listed all these links is the video that you have to cover before coming to class. Yeah, so all are here. Oh, if you ask why, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's one. Basically, normally when it's two here, because it is split into two smaller parts. Each video is shorter than this, normally is longer, right? So we also have some holiday here. Interestingly, when I look at the schedule for Tuesday and Thursday, we have a number of holiday that coincidentally on Tuesday and Thursday this semester. So we have Maulidur Rasul here, Deepavali here. Anyway, right, okay. Another date that is important is this one. Now, originally we have put this date as a midterm exam. So it will be actually after the mid-sem break. Normally the midterm exam is either the week before the break or after the break. Um, but looking at the schedule, I think there's a lot of exam or courses that make the midterm exam in the week before the break. And normally I prefer that as well for me, because for the lecture, because that's easier for us to do the marking in the break. But because it's already packed there, so we put it after. It's just that I have to get a feedback here. Is there anyone that have any, I don't know, Koku or other classes that is on Tuesday? Because that will clash with this one. So I just have to verify this first. Anyone have any class? I don't know. Is it Koku? Is it UNGS or whatever? That actually the schedule is every Tuesday night, for example. Anyone?
So far, no, sir.
Hmm. Come again? On Tuesday? Tuesday night, is it? Yes. Ada yang komen juga kan ni? Let me see the chat. So one student says you have Usrah, meaning this is what, Usrah 1, Usrah 2, or Usrah NJS on Tuesday. Alright. So okay, okay, so because there are several students that mentioned that. Now the other option is if we have to shift it on Monday. So I reiterate the question. If on Monday anyone have any, I don't know, any Koku or UNGS or Usrah, anyone on Monday night? No. So it seems Monday is more in the sense that to avoid this clash, right? Okay, so I'll have to bring back to the other section. So because originally we do not know that any Koku or any courses that do on Tuesday, because normally it is in Wednesday, right? Or Saturday or something. But if they are on Tuesday as well, so we have to maybe revise that. So if the other section is also, it's better to do on Monday, then we will update with that, inshallah. All right. Okay, so that's about the midterm. Right. So this semester, it may be the first time since I don't know when that the midterm will be after the break. So hopefully you can prepare better during the break. Hopefully, inshallah. All right. Now, in terms of the scheduling of each week, right? If you look at the schedule, so basically it will be like this, right? On of course Tuesday and Thursday between 9 and 10, everyone have the schedule there, but you have another hour from 9 to 10. Sorry, this is from 8 to 9. From 9 to 10, for section 1 they have it on Tuesday, for section 2 they have it on Thursday, right? That's your original schedule. Now, the way I prefer to do it, but this one is where I need to know whether you have anything at 9 to 10 on the day that you do not have that hour here, right? Because if you do not have any constraint there, the one thing is the tutorial, another thing is the quiz. Because okay, my approach is like this. Because some students they may not need to spend that hour here, right? For any particular week, for example, because each week we will cover different chapter. So for certain chapters, for example, some students already understand it fully and they do not need to spend this hour, while some students they may need to spend both hour to help them, right? For example, so that is why I want to understand whether, for example, for section 1 on Thursday, do you have anything between 9 and 10? And for section 2 on Tuesday, do you have anything? Other subject between 9 and 10? Because if you do not have that constraint, one is that we have that buffer to manage. Another one, the quiz can be within that time. Now, what I mean by that is like this, because the way we normally do the quiz is like this. At least for my section, right? Because we are applying the flipped classroom approach, meaning that you cover the lecture before coming to class. And in the class, we will do problem solving. So I think the ideal way of doing the quiz is that your quiz on that particular chapter is straight away at the end of that session, right? Because if it's on the other class, then it will affect the whole thing, meaning you will not cover the lecture of that class because you are concerned about the quiz, so you will cover um, from the class before, and then for that chapter you will be lost, etc. Right? So that's why the tutorial comes straight away after. Sorry, the quiz is on the same day as when you cover that one, right? So meaning that you cover the theory, the lecture, you understand the theory, you come, you do all the exercises, preparation, etc., to be able to fully understand it and be prepared to actually answer the question in the quiz straight away after that. So with that arrangement, previously many students do prefer that you have actually ample time to really do exercises for many questions, etc., before coming to the time of the quiz. But that is where the question is: do you have any constraint between 9 and 10, especially on the day that you do not have the tutorial? Meaning that for section 1, obviously in your schedule, for Tuesday, it is until 10, right? But on Thursday, it's only until 9. While section 2, for Tuesday, is only until 9, but for Thursday, it's until 10, right? So my question is, on the day that you have statics only until 9, do you have any other subject between 9 and 10, or it's empty? No meaning no other class there, right? Anyone have anything there? Because if it's free, then we can set the quiz at, for example, at 9. So it will be 9 to 9:15 or 9:20, for example, right? So you actually have 1 hour to prepare and ask any question if you need, etc., right? But if anyone have anything there, then we cannot put it at 9 because then it will violate the other course. So that's why I need, if anyone have anything. But hopefully is because the course will not clash. Hopefully from 9 to 10 you are free, so that when we do the quiz, actually you can have enough space there. Of course, if everyone is totally free from 9 to 10, if anyone want to request, why not the quiz at 9:30? I'm also okay, but maybe some students says they do not want to, they want to have the option to just have 1 hour and then have the quiz, and if they're finished, they finish. For the remaining time, we will have another half an hour left after the quiz. Some students have, or they do not understand the quiz or cannot answer, and they want to discuss, etc. You have the time there, right? So that can be discussed, and we can also change from week to week based on your experience, right? So I will do a proper survey because right now I don't think anyone says they have anything at 9 to 10, but I'll do a proper survey just in case someone, I'm not sure because I think someone are not yet here in this session today. So I will make a proper, so that I will have a proper response. Hopefully no one have anything there, so we can have the quiz at 9, inshallah. Right. Now, okay, this is where that's basically just the way that we just do that now, verbal survey, right? Now, in terms of the quiz, it will give you 20%. Okay. So this is my approach, right? And one is, the quiz is not compulsory, meaning that you will not be penalized if you do not take the quiz. Obviously, you just do not get the mark lah if you do not do the quiz, right? So first is not compulsory. And there's a reason why I say this, because normally I do the quiz that we will do is much more than the quiz that will be taken. Meaning we'll just select several best marks, and so if you, for example, if you already secure those numbers and you do not want to do any other quiz, so it's not compulsory for you to do, right? So that's the implication. Or you do not feel like it, etc. Right? Secondly, there's no makeup quiz. I will not be able to do any makeup quiz. What this means is that even if you have a valid reason you cannot come to any particular class, for example, you have an MC, etc. So I am not able to do any makeup quiz, right? So that's why my approach is normally having the number of quiz that we will have is actually more than the number of quiz, meaning the best marks that will be taken, right? So that you have that buffer. Meaning, for example, you know, if you have MC, etc., those will be the buffer where the quiz that you do not get any marks, you still have enough chance to get or secure the best whatever marks that you need. And normally another issue that sometimes happen is a late submission, right? Normally in late submission, there's only two options for me. One is either it will not be accepted at all. Another one is it will be penalized, meaning that mark will be deducted. When I ask the student, normally they prefer mark will be deducted rather than not accepted at all. But again and again, when that happen, they will also always feel something, right? Why do you deduct so much marks, for example, right? So yeah, normally the standard what will happen is roughly for every minute late you will lose like 3 to 5 marks from. So it's quite significant to be fair to those who submit on time, right? Because you have extra time there, so it should normalize back, right? So meaning that, so the thing is just submit on time, so we will not have any issues here. Okay, this is what I have been doing since, I don't know, I think the good number to have is this. So I will take the best 8 quiz marks, meaning regardless of how many quiz that we have, in the end I will take the best 8 marks from your quizzes, meaning the best 8 quizzes. So if you divide the 20%, each mark of the, meaning each of the 8 quiz will give you 2.5 marks, I think. Yeah. So the question only is this. So how many quiz do you want? And we will do a survey here. But now the thing is like this. The minimum quiz that we can do is 8 because I will take the best 8, so we cannot have less than that. But we can have up to, meaning if we have every single class we have a quiz, for example, we have 14, it will become 28, right? 28, or because today is we do not have quiz, become 27, something like that. In the last semester, semester 2, last calendar year, actually we have 24 quiz. Now the thing is like this. I always assume the more quiz the better for several reasons. One is you have more buffer, right? Meaning from the 24, I just get the best 8, so you have a lot more options, meaning a lot more chance, meaning that if you cannot score this one, okay, next time, and you have 24 chance to get 8 good marks, right? Or 8 full marks, for example. But some student commented that why so many quizzes, right? Even though I say not compulsory, if you do not want to take, no need to take, right? Because you have other quiz you can try if you do not want to cover any particular quiz. But some student they are still affected by when the quiz is there, emotionally or something, right? So that's the question. The thing is, if you just want 8 quiz in the semester, if some of, meaning all of the quizzes will be taken. If some of those are bad, then unfortunate. If you have MC in any of those, then you just get 0 for those. So that's the extreme there. The another extreme is around 24, I think, because that's logical. Because normally during the midterm week, normally the student do not want to take any quiz, so it will reduce back to around 24, right? So that's the maximum that I have done in previous semesters. Sometimes 22, sometimes etc. So all right, so now I think just to get an idea about your preference, So we'll do this survey. You can just mention how many do you prefer, right? Your own preference. Just do not be affected by other people. So again, go to menti.com. Use that code 42443704 and just, I think the minimum is 8 in terms of the choice that you can have, the maximum of 24. So within that range, which do you prefer? So please do submit your preference. Okay, interesting. One student prefer only 8. Some prefer 24, some prefer in the middle. How many have answered 26? All right. Some of you are. $28, so there's few more can respond. Okay, interesting. So the majority is from middle to there, right? Okay, interesting. All right. So in average it's 18, right? From 14 weeks, 18 is a bit more than 1, right? 1 point something. So meaning that for if I just use the average, every week we will have 1 at least, and in some week we will have 2. All right. Okay, thank you for your feedback. All right. Now, in terms of the quiz time, I think we have discussed this, but of course, there are some that just recently joined the session today. So from the discussion, I think most do not have any objection that if the quiz is being done at 9 a.m., right? Meaning that roughly at this time, after 1 hour, we cover the quiz, right? So everyone agree with that, especially for those who just recently come in. So is it okay if we have the quiz at 9 a.m., right? All right. Okay, so especially for those who have any problem with that, please do mention so that we can take into consideration. Okay. Now, I assume, but normally this is the case, right? I think there may be some students in these two sections that is actually repeating this subject, right? Now, because for those who repeat the subject, I think it can be from various scenario or various reason, right? Some students actually really need to cover back the whole thing and to really understand the whole thing. But some students may actually have to repeat because of just the final exam, and they actually already master many of the chapters. Only just these 2 chapter or 1 chapter or 3 chapter that they really struggle with. So I would also like to understand this, especially if there's a student that repeating the subject that only require to really emphasize on certain chapters, right? So if I know any of those who are in this scenario, we maybe can devise a way that even from the beginning, you can already start to really drill down on those particular chapter that is problematic, and do not really need to cover the as the rest that is focusing, of course, throughout, because they are covering for the first time, right? So I will do a survey after the class for this to understand, especially for those who are repeating the subject. If you prefer to just follow the flow, no problem. Because I think for those who have taken this course before, right? I think you have experienced this before, because especially towards the latest after the midterm, right? We will really have how to say, every single class you will have to learn new things, new understanding, new concept, solving new type of problems, and you really do not need enough time. If, for example, if you cannot master it in one class, the next class we already shift to another thing. Next class we already shift to another thing, right? So if you are struggling with this one and you prefer that from the beginning, to reinforce on that one, in the survey, please notify or specify that that is what we need. Does the syllabus same with previous semester? Yes, it will be the same with semester 2 in the last academic calendar, where because in the last semester, the very last semester, we start to have chapter 7, right? Before that, we do not have chapter 7 in our syllabus. So if any student that repeat from semester 2, 2020, 2021, then is the same syllabus. But if anyone repeat from before, meaning, for example, 2 semester back they have taken and now they're taking back, then the syllabus have changes, because we already have a new chapter, which is chapter 7. It started only last semester. Yeah, so that's to answer about the syllabus, right? So I will make a specific survey on this, so that you can answer. For example, you do not really need to spend too much time on several chapters because you already mastered that, and better the time is shifted to some other things, and I will try to help in those things, right? So that this semester you can score for this. Right, so we will have a survey on this to understand, right? Because different students may have different needs. Now, in terms of mathematics, okay, this course is not to teach you mathematics, but it is to teach you how to use mathematics to solve mechanics problem. And the thing is, some students actually really, I don't know, because most of this mathematics, like we say trigonometry, integration, or whatnot, you have learned it before, right? But perhaps just like most students, I don't know, after the exam, they what they have focused on in that semester, they just delete it, empty recycle bin, etc., right? Because it's just for the exam, and then after the exam finish, okay, forget about that. But some of the thing is actually required to be used now, for example. So I will give you a quiz. This is not a quiz that will be graded, just a quiz for you to attempt, just for you to see whether you have any problem or not, to go about several very basic question, right? So I will post this on Google Classroom after this. Please answer this quiz before the end of today or the end of tonight, right? It doesn't take too much time, should be. I think, okay, I'm making this compulsory for 2 reasons. One, at least you yourself know if you have any problem with trigonometry, for example, or integration, so that you know you have to cover that video. That's number one. Number two, the format is a similar format for quiz that we will be doing after this. So that, for example, you have to submit a file where you have to take a picture of your, meaning you have written your answer on paper, you have to take the picture and then you have to submit using the Google form. So before we go to the actual quiz, I want to test whether you actually can submit, because normally we will use our phone, right, to snap picture and then submit either in PDF form or picture form. Either way, I do not want a case where in the actual quiz then suddenly you do not know what to do, etc. Right? So make sure to use this one. It will be quiz 0. There will not be no mark, no grading, no need to worry. Just for you to test the system, so that when the actual quiz come, you know what to do in terms of submission, right? So please do this. And I'll just open the quiz until the end of the night, as long as you do this, right? Okay, so this will be available in Google Classroom after this, inshallah. Right? Now, in terms of communication, you should already aware that we are on iTalim. As well as on iTalim, if you have seen, I have put also the link to enter the Google Classroom, and I think most of you are already in there. And today we are using Google Meet, and onwards we will be using Google Meet as well. So the next question is, do you need, I don't know, Telegram group or not? Or enough already with just iTalim and Google Classroom? Any comment? Oh, not clear. Is it from me? Do you need a group like a WhatsApp or Telegram group on top of iTalim and Google Classroom? Preferably yes. Prefer have group chat for discussion if you don't understand. Okay. All right. In that case, I will give the link. Okay, I can give you now as well to join the Telegram group. Let me see. So I put it in the chat so you can join straight away, and I'll also put in Google Classroom after this the link so that you can join the Telegram group, right? So that is where the additional basically communication line. So if you have any instant question that you have, especially about something, right? Normally technical, I mean, normally question how about what, for example, if you have question to ask, normally the class session and the tutorial session is the proper because we have that direct interaction there, right? But if you, because normally there will be times where it is important to also have Telegram, etc. If you are not sure whether, I don't know, the midterm or whatever, right? Anyway, so that's the Telegram group, right? So moving on. Okay, this is another survey. I just want to know your circumstances, whether in this semester, throughout the semester, you will be in campus or at home or whatever scenario. So I think it's between the two, right? But whether in campus or at home. So so please respond to this so that I know basically the student will be, what is the situation. So again, go to menti.com, and the code on top there is 68904175. So basically, I think there's 3 options, right? That I put here. One is you will be at home throughout the semester. One is you will be in campus, but not yet now. Now it's at home, but meaning in 2 or 3 weeks you will be in campus. Or I'm not sure, because if anyone actually now already in campus and will continue to be in campus, right? That's the 3 option. So right, 20, 22, 24. So it seems that the majority is going to be learning from home, is it? Okay, we'll wait for a few more. Okay, interesting. Only 7 will be in campus. I assume those who are going to be in campus because you will have also lab this semester, I assume. Or is it because other things? Okay, 32. All right. Thank you very much. So vast majority is going to be at home. Okay, interesting. I hope the situation or the surrounding is conducive for your class. I'm not sure if you can. I assume you might hear some noise, some sound from my side because at the same time my kids are also having class. Right. Now, this is going out of the of statics basically, right? But I just put here several notes. Um, Ultimately, okay. I think as a fact we know this, right? Life is a one-time offer. Use it wisely. Basically, we only have one time to do whatever we choose to do with this life, and after it ends, there's no second chance. And for those who are concerned about this or serious about this kind of things and serious about understanding or fulfilling the purpose of life, because normally I think for the majority of the student, when I ask, do you know what's the purpose of life, etc., as a Muslim, in theory most know, right? But in terms of practical, most do not really do anything about it, right? So I'll post on now with regard to this. I'm not sure whether for those who know me personally, you would know that this is one of my I spend a lot of time with this kind of things. Now, in previous years, I have experimented various ways, um, but now I think my approach is like this. I'll just post on Google Classroom. I think something with regard to this, and for those who are interested to actually take action to the next to fulfill the purpose of life, etc., you can respond there, and we can take it further there, inshallah. Right? Okay. So this is just to give you the idea that what I will be doing, including this aspect, so that you will not be confused. Why is it suddenly in that Google Classroom? Okay. Now, for today, we will have to cover chapter 1. So I hope it will not be long. This is already 9:14, right? But before that, okay, before we go to this one, how to say, as this one. So can we, because normally this is at the ending of the session, right? Can we have like a short like photo session where for everyone that is possible, just turn on their camera, pretend to be happy with the class, and we can take a picture before we go to chapter 1. Is it possible for just like few seconds? So I'll just give you like 10 seconds to prepare. All right, so okay, so we'll count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. All right, thank you very much. Right, so thank you very much for this one. So we'll go straight into, where's my chapter 1 just now? This one, okay. Okay, we'll cover chapter 1. This is basically just to give perspective of what this subject is all about, basically, and some major things that you have already covered before that we expect you to understand this throughout, right? So hopefully it's not long. It's just 15 slides. Okay, inshallah, bismillah. Now, the objective of this chapter 1 is just to explain what is mechanics and what is statics and the units that we'll be using, a rounding of number, and apply problem solving strategies. Okay, reading quiz, I'll skip this one. So what is mechanics actually? Right, so mechanics is a study of what happened to a thing. The technical name is body when forces are applied to it. For example, anything. For example, if you have this and we have a force acting on it, and so what will happen? So this is the body, we have forces, and we analyze what will happen, right? So that's basically it. The idea is quite straightforward and simple. So the body can be small, can be big, can be of any various shape, right? Now, under mechanics, because the example that I showed just now is actually for rigid body, because this is rigid, right? But something can be like deformable. For example, this one is not rigid, right? It's deformable. And something can be fluid, which is more complex because it floats, right? So here, for those who are under mechanical subject or courses, be it automotive or aerospace, you have to learn from left to right, right? So the easiest is on the left, the most difficult is on the right. For those who are from different courses, I think they only have to take static and dynamics. Yeah, so on the left is rigid body. You are taking statics. After this, the continuation is dynamic. The difference is basically one is not moving, one is moving, right? So obviously it will make it a bit more complex. Deformable body is more complex, and then fluids is much more complex actually, right? So that is all under mechanics. What will happen when we have force on the body? Just that the body is different in that sense, right? So now we are taking statics. These are the 4 fundamental quantities. I think you know this: length, mass, time, and force. You should know also already what is the Newton's second law. This is fundamental behind this kind of subject. F equal to m times a, force equal to mass times acceleration, right? So in terms of the unit system, we'll be using SI unit, which is like kilogram, Newton, meter, and so on. But I think you are aware that we have a different system existing and in use in this world, right? Especially for those who are familiar with anything from the US, is it movies or something? You will hear them using inch, feet, something like that, right? So that's a different unit. So obviously there's just conversion of unit, but in our university we focus on using the SI unit. Now, in terms of the unit itself, for meter, it's meter for length, second for time, kilogram for mass, and Newton for force. And from F equal to m times A, I think you can derive how Newton equal to kilogram meter per second square, right? So this one, all of this we have covered before, I think in school, right? Some reminder, there's no such thing as plural, meaning that it's not 1 kilogram, 5 kilograms, no such thing. And when you have, when you write, it should be clear what you mean, right? So for example here, when you want to write meter second, it should have the dot there, right? Meter m dot s, so meter second. Because if you do not have dot, you just write ms, we will understand it as millisecond, right? So the understanding, meaning the way you write, is important. You cannot say, "Sir, kenapa hilang markah? Saya tak ada dot je kan? Apa masalah dengan dot ni?" But the meaning is different. So that's why you have to understand. When the meaning changes, your mark, meaning we will grade you based on what the meaning, how to say, what you write on paper should deliver the correct meaning. If it's not, then you will lose marks there. Like you cannot say alah dot je sir kan. Normally before some students say like that, alah dot je sir kan. Saya pun my reply is alah markah je pun. Right. Anyway, there are exponential power. For example, centimeter times centimeter becomes centimeter square. So for area it becomes square, for volume it becomes cube, for example, right? So you will have like centimeter square, meter cube, etc. Right? But hopefully you know how to convert all of this, because I think it's straightforward to convert from meter to millimeter, for example, right? But from meter square to millimeter square, I hope you understand what to do, right? Because it's not just straight away 1000, because there's square there. You have to consider those things. So hopefully you have understand all of this. This is just to refresh your the things that you should already know and understand, and not to make some mistake. Because there's a lot of unfortunately some in the final exam of some previous years, some student, when they convert from I think millimeter cube, for example, to meter cube, they just convert they just use 1000, which is wrong because there's cube there. So that is like a sad way to lose marks. So do not lose mark that way. In terms of this, also you have learned this before, right? The prefix and the symbol to represent those numbers, right? For what is giga, mega, kilo, milli, micro, nano. Obviously, in statics we only normally use the bigger side, right? Giga, mega, kilo. The minimum I think is milli, like millimeter. Because in static we do not deal with micro or nano size, right? We deal with bigger things. In terms of calculation, so obviously when you have equal sign, something equals something, it should be equal, both in value as well as the meaning, right? So if the unit does not equal to each other, then that's a problem. Now, in terms of the number itself, so there's question why here, right? Here it says use an appropriate number of significant figure. I hope you understand what significant figure means. 3 for answer, for at least 4 for intermediate calculation, meaning that if you are calculating, long calculation, for example, throughout here, at least use at least 4 significant figure. When we say at least, meaning more is better, right? 4, 5, 6, right? But you cannot have less than 4. Do you understand why?
For accuracy, for accuracy of final answer.
Right, yeah. For accuracy, right? Meaning that if you already rounding off too much throughout the calculation, the error will be, it can be quite significant or very significant, especially in the calculation you have multiply or whatever, right? So whenever you round off, you actually already introduce error, right? So do not go to 3 or less, especially, right? So at least 4 significant figures when you are calculating. But here it says that in the final answer it should be 3, not more. Do you understand why? What is the problem if you have more for the final answer? For example, I have the final answer of for example, M equal to 23.5 to 176 kilogram. Is there any problem there? That's more, right? But what was the problem? Is there any problem? Isn't it good to have very accurate answer?
I don't know, sir.
All right. Now, here is the thing, right? Because this is representing the engineering world, right? So those kind of number does not make sense. Do you understand why? For example, if I say, okay, tomorrow I want to know how much the weight of every single one of you, right? So go back weigh yourself, meaning that you step on your weighing scale, get the number and report back. Is it possible suddenly tomorrow someone says, okay, for me it is 70.12537 kilogram. Is that logical, or what is the problem there?
Too much is too complicated. Will cause too much complicated.
Not valid.
Yeah, because if you look at real equipment, those number is not possible, right? There's a range of accuracy that every engineering equipment is possible, right? So to get to a very minute point something, normally it's a micro scale, right? It is for something that is in term of microgram, milligram. It will not be able to cover for kilogram, and for kilogram it will only be until like, I don't know, gram or something like. So if you give some answer like that, that is only possible using calculator. And that's the problem, where if you actually become an engineer and you say something like that, it reflects something about you. You just know how to use your calculator, but you do not know what it represent. It's not logical to say something like that, right? So that's actually basically like why it is like this. Now, there's implication. If you look at the textbook, that's why they always have the final answer to be in 3 significant figures. And it does have an implication, and we will see about this after this in the next slide, I think. How to round off number, I think you know this already. You should know this to be in the university, right? Now, okay, I'll just go to this one. Okay, oops, sorry. Okay, in terms of problem solving strategy, okay, do not worry about memorizing this. This is not, we will not ask you, okay, what is the first step? Okay, because this is just the idea that you should understand this is how we work as engineer, right? First, you interpret in terms of student, basically read carefully and determine what is given and what is to be found. Ask if not clear, if necessary, make assumption and indicate them. Obviously, this is in terms of studying, right? But in real world, normally the problem you cannot read. You have to observe, right? Oh, this is the problem. And what you have to be clear, okay, this is known. Okay, we know this, and this is what we need to calculate, right? And about the assumption, you will only come across this in later chapter. I think normally in chapter 8, we will have the question where if you do not make assumption, you might not be able to calculate. But in the earlier chapter, do not worry about this. But in real world, a lot of problem require you to make assumption before you can test the assumption, right? So that's the reality. So make sure you understand, okay, this question, it gives you this, you need to calculate this, right? So that's the first thing. Second, to plan, okay, think ahead, okay, this is how I will do it, this and this and this and this, and then think of different way to solve before you actually solve. So spend, I don't know, 10 seconds to just think first, because even in the exam, some question actually can be solved in 2 or more different way. This way may be shorter than this one, for example, right? So if you think first before you answer, sometimes it will help before just straightway jump and realizing, oh no, this step is too long and you will waste the time already, for example. And execute. So after you have planned, carry out your steps, use appropriate diagram and equation, estimate your answer, avoid simple calculation mistake, reflect on and then revise your work if necessary. Now, in terms of reflect, obviously mistake happen, right, in the exam, etc., right? It's one thing to make a mistake, but it's still logical. It's another thing is if you give an answer that is not logical. Do you understand that? For example, if you have a question, for example, whatever question, and then in the end you have to, okay, the question say, what is the minimum or what is the maximum weight of the car for this to happen, right? For example, you have a car, you have to determine what is the weight of the car or the mass of the car. and suddenly you calculate until the end, you say, okay, it is 12 kilogram. Is there any problem there? Can you detect what's the problem?
Illogical mass.
It's not logical, right? If you understand what is 12 kilogram and what is a car, that answer meaning that you should already know, oh no, some mistake have happened. Otherwise, that answer is not possible, right? But if you, in the final exam, confidently say, 12 kilograms, sir, then the examiner will think whether you should be an engineer or not, right? So that reflection, because if you make mistake but the number is still logical, then at least it's not that meaning you will lose mark of the mistake, right? But if you give an answer that is totally illogical like that, then it reflects badly on you whether you actually know what's going on, right? So please make sure you understand this kind of things. But I think that's the thing for many students. Sometimes they are not exposed that much of. Meaning, for example, if I say 10 kilonewton, can you imagine how much is that? Meaning in real world, 10 kilonewton. Does it relate to it?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Okay. You know already how to convert kilogram to newton, right?
Yes.
What do you do? The simple calculation. If 1 kilogram, how many newton?
10.
9.1.
Okay, yeah.
0.1.
I think in school we use 10, right? Too simple, but I think in university you have to use the gravity. The gravity is 9.81 at least, right? So do not use 10. Use 9.81. So, but to simplify, it's 10, right? Meaning 1 kilogram, 10 newton. So meaning that if you can feel what is one kilogram, then that's basically meaning, right? So you have to feel, okay, so what is the logical number for car, right? So for car, if for example is 1 ton, so what's the kilonewton that's logical? So you should be able to sense this kind of things, right? So make sure you just imagine all those things so that you have a graph. 10 kilonewton, what does that mean? What does the equal to roughly, right? So hopefully you do imagine those things to help in terms of knowing what is logical and what is not. All right. Okay, this is about the significant figures just now, right? So if you do the calculation and your answer in your calculator turns out to be 12345.6, based on what we have covered in the slide, which answer will you give as the final answer? And why?
D.
Why?
3 significant figures.
All right, this is relating to that, right? 3 significant figures. Now, okay, it is exactly that, right? So the number is correct, but the number is the same actually, but it is not 3 significant figures. Now, if you convert to B, obviously that's still the same number, just convert from Newton to kilonewton, but it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 significant figure, right? So if the before we say it should be 3 significant figure, that does not fulfill that. If you go to C, that's already that's 2 significant figure, right? So D is 3 significant figures. E is totally wrong, right? So now this is why if you look at the textbook, sometimes they change the unit because you cannot make 3 significant figure in Newton, right? You cannot write 1, 2, 3, 0, 0 Newton. That's wrong because 1, 2, 3, 0, 0 is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.6. So that's why they will change. Normally when they want to make it 3 significant figure, they will go up in the unit, like here, right? They will make it kilonewton and then they can make it 3 significant figures because decimal point you can round off. So that's the reason, because some student will ask, because if you go through the textbook, sometimes for no reason suddenly they change the unit. Why is that? It is because of this. It is because of they want to make it. Of course, we can say that isn't A more accurate? Yes, right. But it is 6 significant figures. B is the same, you convert, but it's also meaning that having too much decimal point like that is not in the real world as well, right? Because in the real world we do not deal with that much decimal point in our equipment. All right, this is just memory. Do you remember what is IPE, what is P stand for?
Plan.
Plan. Okay, thank you very much. So that's the end of chapter 1. Okay, so now okay, this is the end of today, inshallah. Now before I forgot, right? Okay, based on the quiz just now, because I think the average is 18 point whatever quiz, so it means that every week we will have one quiz at least, based on that average, if I take that average, right? And in some week we will have 2, so that will add up to 18. So meaning that in this week, because today we do not have any quiz, we will have a quiz in the next class. But of course, I'm open for any feedback. Do you want quiz in the next class or no? Delay later. But of course, generally, I think it's easier to have more quiz in the beginning because the chapter should be easier compared to later, right? But of course, if you do not prepare, either way, it's a problem. But if you prepare, it should be easier for the early chapter to get full mark, should be, compared to when we cover the complicated chapter later. Right? Okay, so based on the response that I can see right now, no objection yet. So with that, again, for those who joined the session late, I will put the recording in Google Classroom, the link in Google Classroom when it is finished uploading this recording of this session. I'll put also the PDF of the schedule so that you know exactly what we will cover in each class, and you will know what we'll cover on Thursday, right? Okay, these 2 videos you have to cover, meaning we will cover that portion. And the quiz will be corresponding to that portion, right? So with that, we'll cover the first quiz for chapter 2, corresponding to what we will cover in Thursday, 9 a.m. Meaning that we will start our class as normal at 8, and 1 hour after that at 9, we have the first quiz. So you have 1 hour to prepare for the quiz. So make sure, as we have explained about the flipped classroom, cover the lecture beforehand, come into class, we will solve problems, and if you have any problem with solving problems, make sure you ask there and then, so that when the quiz comes, you know what to do, inshallah, and you can get a good marks for the quiz. So that's for the next class. I'll just recap what you have to do after this class. I'll post on Google Classroom several survey about confirmation of the time, I think, for the midterm, and several other things. I think I will survey to help to plan forward, right? And for those who repeat, there are several questions that I would like you to share in terms of which chapter you are okay, which chapter you struggle, for example, before. Things like that. There are several surveys that you have to do. I'll put it on Google Classroom, inshallah. So you can do it before the end of today, the end of tonight, inshallah. Any other question before? Okay, no. I think I have one more as the final slide. Okay, a survey. So as a ending survey for today, I think we'll end with this one. Where is this? End of class. So please do give any feedback, how to improve or whatever, based on today's session. So again, go to menti.com and the code up there, 83061741. So in the meantime, so please do give feedback. But in the meantime, any question, anything at all, anything not clear about how we will be conducting the course, etc.?
No, so far, sir.
No. All right. The rest of you, everything is okay. So if you have a question, please ask. Do not how to say, do not keep to yourself, because our next class we will have a quiz, or next week. Next class meaning Thursday, this Thursday. Meaning the day after tomorrow, we will have the first quiz. The beginning of chapter 2. The quiz should, yes.
On Thursday from 8 to 9 we have a normal class, and then from 9 we have a quiz.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the normal class is based on what we explained earlier about the flipped classroom, meaning that it will be mainly solving problems after you have covered the lecture videos before coming to class. All right. So any other question? What platform? Okay, one of the things that you have to do after this class, but whenever you're free until midnight or something, is quiz number 0, right? I will post on Google Classroom that quiz. Don't worry, it will as I mentioned, it will not be graded. There's no mark or minus mark there. It's just for you to test yourself with that question. That's number 1. Number 2, to test on submitting the question. Basically, because when we do the quiz, you actually have to do on your own paper, writing, etc., and then you have to take picture of that paper and submit using Google Form. So the quiz today is to test the system, meaning that can you actually snap the picture and then submit on Google Form. You should be able to, but for those who have never done it before, at least you will have the practice to do that before the real quiz, so you know what to do, right? So the platform of submission will be the same as the one that I will be giving for quiz 0 today, which is using Google Form. That's the submission platform. Obviously, the quiz is done on paper lah. You will have the question, and then you just write on paper and then take the picture of that and submit, be it as PDF or picture, depending on what you have on your phone and what's easier on your phone. All right. No problem. All right. Okay, so that's the end for today. Thank you very much. See you on Thursday, inshallah, at 8 a.m. Of course, that will be the first time for some of you to experience the flipped classroom approach, I think. Meaning that before 8 a.m., however you plan it, be it tonight, tomorrow, whatever, cover the lecture for the 2 video according to the schedule, right? I will put the schedule on Google Classroom, inshallah. Wallahu alam. Okay, before I end, I hope you are familiar with this, right? Because normally when we end our session, we recite tasbih kifarah, right? In Malay, we normally say tasbih kifarah or tasbih kafarah, right? I hope you are familiar with this, right? Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik until the end. But my question is this. This is for you to find out, right? Is there any reason we do that? Is there any reason we recite tasbih kifarah? And sometimes I like to ask this question as well. Is it taught by Prophet Muhammad SAW, or who teach that, and what's the benefit, right? So if you have never known this before, so that's just, this will not be graded, etc., but it's good to know why we do certain things. So just, you can just Google or find out this, so that when we recite tasbih kifarah or tasbih kafarah, you know what's the reason and what's the benefit, right? So that's basically another task for you to find out, inshallah. So with that, we end the session, inshallah, with tasbih kafarah and suratul asr. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Innal insana lafi khusr illa allazina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Okay, inshallah, jazakumullah khairan katsira. Thank you very much. See you on Thursday. And of course, take note of what will be posted on Google Classroom, especially those what you need to submit today, right, before the end of the day, inshallah. Hopefully it doesn't take too much time. But it's important for me to plan ahead, insyaAllah. Wallahu alam, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you,
Waalaikumsalam.
sir.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi. Thank you, sir.